What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Open Ultra League with a triple buff team consisting of Excadrill on Draw Run and a double Gust backline with both Tornadus and Yveltal. Now I have to say, especially with the non-shadow, Excadrill almost feels like it's not even a glass cannon anymore because the draw run damage decrease kind of takes away the cannon part of it. Sure, you get a slightly spammier Pokemon, but in a lot of neutral situations in the Ultra League where there is a ton of bulk, unfortunately 2 drill runs are not even going to put most Pokemon into Mudshot farm down range, so it does feel kind of underwhelming. On top of that, when it's super effective damage, you're also probably going to need 2 drill runs to get the knockout as well, so personally for me it was quite disappointing. And as for the backline, I think similar to Confusion users, you kind of need a 40 energy charge move or cheaper for it to feel like it can keep up. Otherwise, if it's going to take you 4 Gusts to get to your first move, basically everything in the meta is going to outpace you, and with both of these Pokemon's signature moves either boosting your own defense or debuffing the opponent's attack, it kind of forces you to shield early in the game. That being said, I still had some really fun battles, but in general I'd say Drill Run feels like a downgrade specifically for Excadrill, and you probably stick to either Sucker Punch or Astonish over running Gust on the backline. But with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. What has been the most underwhelming Pokemon you've tried with a new move update this season? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. So go into the first battle, leading Excadrill into Toucannon. So this is going to be a positive-ish matchup for me. I believe Rockside won't actually quite get the one-shot, so Mudshots, of course, going to be resisted damage, which means it would be quite a tricky situation to be in, but the opponent's going to stay swap into Dusknoir. Now here, if I had Sucker Punch, I could probably shield a Dynamic Punch and then go for a full fast move farm down, whereas unfortunately on Gust, I am going to be forced to throw some energy. However, I've boosted up my defense, which hopefully should allow me to live a Drill Peck, which means the opponent is now going to have to full set a Beak Blast. They actually no-shield the Oblivion Wing, that does big damage, but the opponent goes for Beak Blast, and they get the knockout. We're now going to come in with Tornadus, and the opponent, final Pokemon, going to be a Skeleturge. However, because they had a one-turn swap there, throwing straight away allows me to get a full Gust in for free, and now I can just narrowly outpace them to back-to-back Bleak Wind Storms. However, unfortunately, we're probably in range where they can just fully fast move farm me down, so I'm not going to allow the farm down. Instead, we swap into Excadrill, and we had enough residual energy to reach the Drill Run. Drill Run gets the knockout up against the Skeleturge, and so the opponent just concedes the match. So, GG's up on there into next battle. We're going to see Excadrill into Registeel. So, in this matchup, Drill Run, we will need 2 of them anyways, even before the nerf to the damage. So, actually, Drill Run is going to be slightly positive in this matchup for us, as we're going to see 2 Drill Runs will just barely be enough damage to get the KO. So, I'm going to shield here. They might be on Focus Blast, but actually, they go for a Zap Cannon there, which is quite strange. I'm not sure if they were just fishing for a debuff, or if potentially they're on Zap Cannon and Flash Cannon, and they're just not running Focus Blast at all, because, of course, Flash Cannon did get buffed this season. But either way, we go for Drill Run, and unfortunately that just narrowly doesn't quite get the knockout there. The opponent goes for their own Drill Run, however that is non-stab damage, so I'm able to tank it, and now I swap into my Tornadus. My intention here is to bait the Registeel back out, because of course I've got access to Heat Wave for coverage. The opponent goes for Shadow Ball, which does big damage, as Tornadus is a pure flying type rather than a flying and normal type, but Heat Wave gonna hit for super effective, and it puts them into perfect farm down range, and that should now be game over, as of course we can go for Bleak Wind Storm. This is going to permanently debuff their attack stat. We come in with Yveltal, which can also boost up its defense, and so the opponent just concedes the match. So, GG's to opponent there into next battle. We're going to see Shadow Toucannon in the lead this time around. The opponent is going to be safe swapping into Licky, and you're going to see in this matchup here, 2 Drill Runs are just not really going to do much damage whatsoever, and unfortunately, they're also not really going to put them into range where I could Gust farm them down with one of my back Pokemon either. So here they full send the Shadow Ball, which is fine with me. I'm going to fire off the Drill Run, and then I'm going to look to try and catch the next Shadow Ball onto my Yveltal, where of course that would be resisted. Now, unfortunately, the opponent holds onto the energy there, which means they're now going to spam out these Body Slams incredibly fast, and by the time I get the full farm down here, they're going to reach a 3rd Body Slam. So Body Slam number 2 coming through, and they're already at Body Slam number 3. I am probably going to have to shield at this point, so I'm going to shield there. We do finally get the full farm down. They come back in with the Toucannon, and I go straight for Oblivion Wing. Honestly, I probably should have just over-farmed a little bit there, because boosting up my defense only gives them more farm as they go for a full peck farm down. And unfortunately, my extra drill is so low that even a drill peck probably gets the knockout. So we come in with Tornadus, they fire off the drill peck, we then swap back into extra drill there. We had the rock slide loaded, however, I expect to grab a shield anyways, so I go for a drill run. They bank the energy before swapping into their final Pokemon, which is Virizion. Now, if they've got Stone Age, this is already game over. However, if they don't, then I will actually resist all of the charge moves. And then basically Tornadus and the Toucannon have very similar attack stats, so it's going to come down to IVs who has the higher attack stat in the situation, as we do get the full gust farm down. But unfortunately, we do end up losing CMP. So of course, Beak Blast easily takes out Tornadus there, and we end up losing that game. But GG's to open there into the next battle. I can see Fortress in the lead, so this is going to be a great lead matchup for me. However, like I mentioned in the intro, you're now going to see that Drill Run will not be enough damage to two-shot them, which is not really ideal here. Whereas if we did 10 more damage, then potentially we could get the full farm down after landing 2 Drill Runs. Whereas now, as you're going to see, this second Drill Run is not going to threaten the shield. I can never mud shot farm them down, and it puts me in a really awkward situation. However, the opponent hesitates there, maybe expecting me to try and make the catch slightly earlier, and as a result, we're able to pull off the catch there, and they come in now with a Feraligatr. So we're going to go for Bleak Windstorm. Of course, this is going to debuff their attack stat, and the opponent is going to use a shield. Now, if they go for a Hydro Cannon here, I might just barely live and reach another Bleak Windstorm. It's going to be super close, but we live with literally 1 HP and a dream. That is insane for us, because Bleak Windstorm going to grab the final shield. Now, even if they have Ice Beam, they are double debuffed, so I don't really want to shield here. The opponent is on Ice Beam. That does just over half our HP. However, the opponent gonna throw an alignment. That is fine with me. I can now just commit to a full gust farm down, and depending on what they've got in the back, we should be in a decent position. It's gonna be a Zygarde. The opponent tries to catch the charge move, but it does not work out, and as a result, we've got 100 energy. We go for Oblivion Wing. Oblivion Wing doesn't really deal too much damage there, but we've also got Focus Blast for coverage, and this is a really strong neutral charge move. It still barely doesn't get the knockout. Zygarde's super bulky, but we get the gust farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's upon there into the next battle. Great lead matchup for me. The opponent's going to be safe swapping into Florges, and unfortunately, I don't really have the best response, but I'm going to stay in. I'm going to chip with a Drill Run. However, of course, no, never mind, I'm not, because the opponent is going to end up shielding. I'm going to shield as well, as the opponent is going to go for Chilling Water. Chilling Water is going to hit for super effective damage, and now I'm going to fire off a second Drill Run. Drill Run, unfortunately, not really going to do too much damage now that I am debuffed, but we can come in with the Tornadus, as the opponent is going to full send a Moonblast before swapping into Ampharos, and unfortunately, that puts me into perfect farm down range. However, of course, we can still align our extra drill to the Ampharos. Brutal Swing, not going to deal too much damage there, and I can now outpace them to a Drill Run. Now, Drill Run should be enough damage to get the knockout, so the opponent is going to use the final shield, but this is also going to threaten my final shield. So, of course, I'm going to shield here as they fire off the next Brutal Swing, and I can outpace them to the next move, but I do have to throw fairly soon, so Drill Run gets the KO. And let's see, what is their final Pokemon? They come back in with the Florges, and I am able to outpace them, but the opponent's gonna make the catch onto a Licky Licky, where, as we've seen already, that really doesn't do much damage. I'm gonna bank the Drill Run, swap into my Yveltal, and the opponent is, of course, gonna fire off the charge move, but they farmed up a lot here. The opponent is on Hyper Beam, and that does so much damage. No! We go for Oblivion Wing. That gets them very low, but unfortunately, Extra Drill just barely missing out on the full farm down, potentially. Maybe I could have just thrown there. I don't know why I didn't. I can't remember if Flora just had a charge move loaded or not. I guess that was why I didn't throw. But either way, GG's to that trainer. Hyper Beam coming in clutch for them. And unfortunately, that kind of just rocked me there, and I guess I panicked. But either way, into next battle, we are going to see the opponent's going to be safe swapping into Shadow Camerupt, and just 2 Incinerates gets extra drill into the deep yellow health range. We're now going to come in with Tornadus. Of course, I'm going to have to tank a rock. Well, we're going to have to shield a Rock Tomb there, but now we can fire back with the Bleak Windstorm, which is going to get the knockout. They come back in with a Tinkaton, and I can fire off a Heat Wave. However, of course, they've just debuffed my attack stat, which means Heat Wave, whilst it is super effective, it's actually not really dealing too much damage. The opponent going to throw just before we reach the next Heat Wave, so very good charge move timing, and they do full send a Gigaton Hammer. We're going to come back in with the extra drill. I'm very low, so honestly, Bulldoze probably will get the knockout here. The opponent is probably eventually going to swap, and they do. They swap once again into Licky Licky, and hopefully this time they don't end up having Hyper Beam, because that last one really destroyed my my Yveltal, but we're going to come in. Of course, all shields are down, so if they have Hyper Beam, it's probably game over. But the opponent is just going to go for a Body Slam there. That's absolutely fine. We can go for Oblivion Wing. Oblivion Wing, going to get them fairly low, but they will reach another Body Slam. However, this is not really going to put me into Fairy Wind farm down range, and they can't really go for Bulldoze either, because that is going to be resisted. The opponent forced to full send a Gigaton Hammer, and this is actually where the pacing of Drill Run is going to be very nice, because the opponent, they now have the energy for the Bulldoze, but we've got back-to-back Drill Runs. First one grabs the final shield, second one will connect, it gets the knockout up against the Tinkaton, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there into next battle. We're going to see Steelix in the lead, so a great lead matchup for me. The opponent swaps into a ground type, but no, I swap out straight away, and they are on Ice Fang on their Shadow Hippowdon. Nice play by the opponent there. I swapped out way too soon, and obviously if I had bad reactions there, honestly, I'd have been in a decent position. Wow, why am I really struggling to say that? But now, unfortunately, I'm forced to double shield it. I'm really hoping the opponent will just give me the alignment that I want, but it's very unlikely since we had such a dominant matchup in the lead there that they will, of course, allow me to maintain alignment there. The opponent gets the farm down. I have double debuffed them, so even though they are going to be on Weather Ball, and of course they have Ice Fangs, I can now tank this on my Yveltal, and what I'm hoping for is that the opponent goes straight for a Psychic Fangs, and that will allow me to reach a Focus Blast. The opponent, they're going to fire the charge move, they go for Psychic Fangs, and that doesn't do much damage, and now I can full send. But really, it just depends what's in the back, as unfortunately that does not get the knockout, and they had a Dust Noir, so I had the perfect alignment here in terms of typings, but that Ice Fang Hippowdon, I was just not ready for it, and so fair play to the opponent. And unfortunately, Dynamic Punch gets the one shot very comfortably there, as they're actually on Hex rather than Astonish, which means they get there faster, and as a result, we end up losing that game. But GG's up on there into next battle. We're going to see a Malamar in the lead. Now, it's very unlikely that they go for a superpower straight away, but I end up shielding just in case, and now we can outpace them to back-to-back drill runs. So Drill Run number 1, going to be no shielded. Drill Run number 2, they might just barely be able to tank this. However, they are going to use a shield. I'm going to try and swap and catch a superpower onto Tornadus, where it would be resisted. However, the opponent, they're over farming. They full send a Hyper Beam. That's the second time we get hit with a Hyper Beam in very close battles there. That is really unfortunate for me. At least this will allow me to farm them down with my Yveltal. However, they are going to have a Tinkaton in the back, and unfortunately, we don't have the greatest coverage. We do have Focus Blast, but this is just going to hit for neutral damage, and you're going to see Focus Blast, it costs a lot of energy, it does big damage there, but it's just not really ideal for me, so I'm going to shield the Gigaton Hammer. I'm now going to look to overfarm. I could throw the charge move here, and I probably should have done, because I swap, I catch it onto my Extra Drill, but that just does so much damage. They come in with their final Pokemon, which is going to be a Kingdra, and unfortunately, whilst I am resisting Dragon Breath, they can just Dragon Breath farm me down. We do have the Oblivion Wing, but it doesn't really matter at this point. They've still got a shield. They're going to shield the charge move. They can fire off the charge move here, and honestly, Surf, Swift, either way, it's going to get the knockout, but they're actually on Outrage. That gets the KO for sure, and unfortunately, I lose that game. But GG's up on there into next battle. I'm going to see a Swampert in the lead. Not a great lead matchup for me, but we're going to swap into Tornadus, and this isn't really that bad for me because I do have access to Heat Wave, and not only that, I'm also resisting the sand attack damage. Well, double resisting it. Of course, they are resisting my Gust. If we were on Astonished, this would actually be a really positive matchup for me, but Gust, slightly slower to generate energy, and as well, not going to deal as much damage. But 2 Heat Waves will be enough damage to get the knockout. I did consider going for a Bleak Windstorm just because surely they are going to shield there. That probably would allow me to live the next charge move. However, Air Cutter gets the knockout. We can come back in with the Extra Drill. We have a shield advantage. I don't want to be hit with a payback, so I am going to fire the Rock Side, and Rock Side gets the knockout. I'm going to swap straight away into Yveltal, and the opponent has their own Dark and Flying type Pokemon in the form of Galar and Moltres. However, this is where Gust is quite useful for me. A Sucker Punch, it would be resisted. They are hitting for resisted damage with their own Sucker Punches, but now we can just safely shield up the Fly. Unfortunately, they will just barely reach another charge move, but you know what? I might as well shield this because now I can go for a second Oblivion Wing into the Swampert coming back in, and what this should allow me to do is very comfortably lift the Hydro Cannon. Now, the opponent is going to farm up to, I believe, back-to-back charge moves here. However, I believe Yveltal will win CMP, so we throw straight away. They actually don't throw immediately either, so Oblivion Wing doesn't quite get the knockout there, but it doesn't really matter. One Mud Shot from the Extra Drill, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into the next battle, we're going to see a Shadow Drapion in the lead. So, a great lead matchup for me. The opponent's going to be safe swapping into Sand Slash, and this Pokemon can have access to Rock Tomb, so I'm definitely going to shield the first charge move. The opponent is going to go for a Night Slash bait there, which is quite interesting. I don't know if that means that they are not on Rock Tomb maybe, or if they were just baiting because they expected to grab a shield. But either way, now that I've debuffed them, I can no shield this, and it is just going to be another Night Slash. So at this point, I'm actually not going to bother throwing any more charge moves at all. Instead, I'm going to allow the opponent to keep on throwing out these Night Slashes, which aren't really dealing much damage, and also kind of forcing them to throw on bad timing there, which means I can go for a full Gust farm down. We come out with back-to-back Bleak Windstorms already loaded, and this is going to drop their attack stat. First one does decent damage there. We can fire off a second Bleak Windstorm straight away, and the opponent, they are just never going to be able to farm me down here. So the opponent is going to be forced to throw some energy, but this is absolutely fine. Now, I expect the opponent will be swapping out straight away as they're debuffed, so we come in straight away with our Yveltal, and the opponent comes in with a Politoed. This time around, I do expect Ice Beam, so I'm going to shield and a full send it. But now we can go for Oblivion Wing, and of course, going to boost up my defense. This should allow me to very comfortably tank an Ice Beam, and I will be able to reach yet another Oblivion Wing. So Ice Beam is super effective, but we tanked that pretty comfortably to the point where they probably couldn't even get away with going for a Weather Ball. Oblivion Wing, number 2, gets the knockout. The opponent, not going to bother throwing. We get the Gust farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent into the next battle. We're going to see Greninja in the lead. I'm going to be swapping straight away into Tornadus, and the opponent going to come in with a second water starter Pokemon in the form of Blastoise. This team already doesn't really make an awful lot of sense, but either way, we're able to grab a shield there. At this point, I'm probably just going to have to take that shield advantage. The opponent goes for a Hydro Cannon there, which means I can reach a second Bleak Windstorm. And Bleak Windstorm number 2 actually going to grab both shields from the opponent. However, they are going to get a very aggressive farm down, which is certainly not ideal. Now, we come in with the Yveltal there. The opponent going to come back in with a Greninja, and I'm going to have to shield one of these charge moves. I will have to let one of them go through. Although, actually, no, never mind. I might as well shield here because I don't think Blastoise has Ice Beam. Otherwise, they probably would have thrown it. So instead, we're going to go for the Oblivion Wing, and this, of course, is going to boost up my defense. Oblivion Wing is going to get the knockout, and their final Pokemon is a Lapras. Now, I'm boosted here. I probably lived the Ice Beam, but I swap, I catch it onto my Extra Drill. But no, they went for Sparkling Aria. Are you kidding me? And now the opponent, they're able to outpace me to the next charge attack as well. Sparkling Aria gets the knockout. The opponent gonna swap back into Blastoise. And what is their coverage move? They had Ice Beam the entire time, which means, unfortunately, whilst yes, I can fire off the Oblivion Wing, Oblivion Wing is not going to take out the Lapras. I need the Focus Blast, and I'm not going to get there despite the fact that they have non-step Psywave damage. They're able to farm me down, and unfortunately I lose that game. But honestly, triple water team, like, that didn't even make any sense at all, because it was not like your typical triple water team where you might have a flying water and maybe a ground and water type where you kind of cover for your weaknesses. They were just really, really weak to the electric typing and the grass typing. But either way, into the next battle, we are going to see a Corviknight. I tried to swap and catch a Payback. It backfires massively as they don't throw it. And also, this is just not a great matchup for Yveltal either. So honestly, I don't know why I came in with the Yveltal here, trying to be smart, and it massively backfires. But either way, at this point, I'm just going to no-shield this. I realize I've made a mistake. At this point, we're going to have to just own up to it, come in with the Tornadus, and the opponent is going to throw some energy. Now, they are single stage boosted, I believe, so Air Cutter does decent damage there, but I'm not going to take any risks at this point. We're going to go straight for Heat Wave, and Heat Wave gets the KO. They come back in with the Fortress. I'm going to come in with the Extra Drill, and I will be able to live a Sand Tomb relatively comfortably. So we go for the Drill Run, and the opponent is going to go straight for that Sand Tomb. I'm going to no-shield this as it's not going to deal too much damage, as now they swap back into Kingdra. So of course, we've got a lot of drill runs here. We're going to fire off the first one, but as you can see in neutral situations, this just doesn't really deal that much damage at all. Drill run number 2, going to get them fairly low, but I can at least come in with my Tornadus, shield once, and then fully farm them down. Now, of course, we have already revealed Heat Waves to the opponent. They should be shielding in this matchup, which means I'm now going to look to overfarm. I tried to throw on CMP. However, I believe the opponent actually maybe just got one turn bring in lag, either that or potentially they just hesitated as they didn't want to throw a Sand Tomb. But either way, we grab both shields from the opponent, and now they're double debuffed as well, which means Extra Drill, we are incredibly low, but I have to no shield here. Sand Tomb gets me low, but the opponent, they tried to commit to the farm down. We had more than 1 HP, which means Drill Run gets the knockout, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG to up on there into next battle. We see Skeleturge in the lead. So this is going to be a pretty awkward matchup for me, of course. In the one-shot scenario, I should just narrowly win this because I will outpace them and get to back-to-back drill runs. However, if I stay in, they just fully farm me down, which is certainly not what I want. So I'm going to swap into my Tornadus, but here, because we have Bleak Windstorm, which is 45 energy, we don't quite get to the charge move before the opponent can reach another Torch Song, which means I will have to use my first shield there. But Bleak Windstorm gets them low. It doesn't quite get the knockout, but now they're going to come in with a 2-cannon. As we see, my phone needs charging here. I'm not really sure why I'm not charging it, but either way, we're able to force the CMP tie. We win CMP with the extra drill, apparently. Rockside does big damage, but actually, no, that was not CMP. So, interesting there. Drill Run gets the KO. We come in with Yveltal, and we're able to farm them down. But let's see, their final Pokemon is going to be Shadow Staraptor, but they're not on Gust. Instead, they are on Wing Attack. They tried to go for the catch, but even so, we don't quite have back-to-back Oblivion Wings, which means, unfortunately, because they're on Wing Attack, the opponent's actually going to reach back-to-back charge moves here, and they are definitely going to win CMP here, unfortunately for me, because the opponent... they win CMP up against Yveltal, Fly gets the knockout, and we lose that game. But GG's to a trainer, I believe that was actually a subscriber of mine, so fair play to you. Very nicely played. Into the next battle, we are going to see a Licky save swap, so once again, we've seen this already. We are double resisting the fast food pressure, which is why I do stay in with the extra drill. And again, we tried to catch the Shadow Ball. We have not caught the Shadow Ball so far. Are we going to hit by another Hyper Beam? Nope, just a Body Slam, but they can spam these incredibly fast, which is certainly not ideal for me. The opponent, they go for a Body Slam. They can reach another Body Slam, and maybe I just barely live this, but I'm going to have to shield anyways. I can't take that risk. And the opponent comes back in with the Clefable. So here, we're going to go for Oblivion Wing. That is going to deal decent damage. And honestly, that's probably going to put them into range where I can just go for a single drill run. I'm going to no shield. They go for Moonblast. Moonblast does decent damage considering it is resisted damage there. But now we can spam out these drill runs. So first one, going to be shielded. I'm now going to look to throw on CMP with a potential Meteor Mash. And drill run number 2 actually also going to be shielded. So this one, I don't have a clue what they've got in the back. However, I'm going to shield because it seems like they are desperate to keep their Clefable alive, but also they're kind of desperate to just make sure that the extra drill doesn't see whatever's in the back. So here, unfortunately, we're not going to get the full farm down, so I'm forced to swap out, catch the charge move onto my Yveltal. Now, Extra Drill is very low in HP, however, I'm going to come in with it anyways, get a big farm down, but unfortunately for me, it is going to be a non-Shadow Kingdra, and we've already seen this. 2 drill runs, they just don't do enough damage here. So we're going to fire off the second drill run. Drill run number 2, of course, going to connect. We swap into Tornadus, but the opponent, they actually swap out of that matchup, and that is huge for me because if they went for a Surf or even a Swift, Moonblast guarantees the knockout, whereas now we get the full farm down, we can win CMP with Tornadus, and as a result, Bleak Windstorm gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.